Yes, we have people here in North America today, so welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Laurie Knechtel, and I'm going to be your guide for the next hour here while we talk about content marketing and ways that you can save time and make sure that your content marketing efforts are effective. I'm a small business owner in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, with Motivate Marketing and Design. Primarily, I'm a speaker and strategic marketing advisor. I do a lot of consulting and training with small business clients from all different types of industries. I'm also a local expert with Constant Contact who is kind enough to sponsor this webinar today. And so Constant Contact is email marketing platform. That's the big platform. But they also offer other products, other systems, services that you can use as well. So newsletters and announcements, offers and promotions, feedback and surveys, and events and registrations. The thing that I love about Constant Contact, and this is from a small business owner's perspective, is this allows me to use one marketing tool to do all of the various things that I need to do to market my business. So if you're a Constant Contact user, you can probably relate. If not, and you have questions, please send me an email after the webinar or ask a question, and I'll answer it at the end of the webinar. And there is an offer that Constant Contact has in the chute, and I will share that with you at the end of the webinar. But for now, let's get started with the topic at hand. So at its core, I think we all have, a definition of marketing in our minds when we hear the word marketing, but at its core, it's about getting results. It's about getting measurable results with marketing, and marketing has become such a hot strategy over the last couple of years. What kind of results do you want to get? Well, that depends on the nature of your business. Maybe it's you want people to click and download, click on a link and download something that you want to share with them. Maybe you want them to visit your store or office if you have a bricks and mortar location. Maybe you want to make a reservation with you, or maybe you want them to call you. That's your call to action. So regardless of what that call to action is, it all leads to the bottom line, to revenue and to donations if you happen to be a not-for-profit on purpose, that is, because I think a lot of small business people can relate a not-for-profit from time to time, but it's not intentional. So why is your email and social content so important? It's currency. It's currency. People want your content, and they're willing to invest time, energy, and or even money sometimes to get your content. And so we want to talk about allowing you to be the source of information that your readers know, like, and trust, which is going to keep you top of mind when they need your product or service. And one of the ways that you do this is you can answer your customers' questions. So a big source of content, as we'll chat about as we move along here, is answering customers' questions. All of us in our various types of businesses in our industries, what have you, whether it's live at an event that we might attend, over the phone or via email, maybe it's during the sales process, we get frequently asked questions from our customers. So we're going to talk about how we can turn those turn those questions into content, because chances are really good, as the old adage goes, that if one person is asking the questions, a lot more people have that same question. So what kind of content should you use? It's actually fairly simple. You want to use content that attracts, converts, and retains customers. That's a no-brainer. We all know that. We're going to talk about the how a little more during this webinar. You want to make it relevant and interesting, and that is critical because there's so much competition for your customers' attention now through social media, through email, etc., that you want to make sure that you're targeting your audience with relevant and interesting information and content that they're going to want to take a look at. And of course, you want a clear call to action. It's really nice to send content out to people and have them take a look at it. But what's the purpose of sending your email out? Again, it's about getting results. So you want to have a clear call to action that says, click here to visit our website, click here to find out more, click here to register for our event, or click here for our contact information. You want to be able to measure who's taking those, who's following that call to action through, who's interested in your call to action, in your product, in your service, in your opportunity. So very simply here, take a picture, add a paragraph, add a call to action, and you're done. Now this seems overly simplistic, but really we don't need to complicate it. It is that simple. And remember, when you're creating content, this is a pitfall that far too many business owners fall into, and admittedly I used to as well. You're writing for your audience, not for yourself. It's so easy for us to think, well, they need to hear this, and I want them to hear this, but it's not about what you want them to know. They might not care much about, what you had for dinner, really, who does? But, there are critical pieces of information that you have that your customers want, and that's why, as an example, the questions that customers ask can be a great way to determine what you're going to write about, because you know that those frequently asked questions contain those are things that your audience wants to know. So talk about compelling and engaging. This is an example of an email from Camp Unleashed. Now this seems like quite a niche market, but for those of us who have pets, and especially dogs in this situation, we love our dogs. They're part of the family, and so this cute picture is quite engaging. You want to put a smile like this on your dog. Last chance to sign up. So there's a clear call to action there. There's a compelling and engaging picture. Of course, cute animals always work to get people's attention, it seems. So very straightforward. And the nice thing, this is obviously an email, but you can do the same thing in social media. The nice thing is that this looks and feels like of Camp Unleashed. So that's important to keep in mind as well when you're creating content for your various channels, is to make sure that the messaging, the tone, the appearance, all of it is consistent with your branding and the messaging from your other collateral, your other marketing collateral. To note, these are very important stats. 38% of people will unsubscribe from your email list if it's boring. 32% will send an email to spam, reported as spam, if it's not relevant to them. So there we're kind of going back to the importance of making sure that the content that you send your audience is relevant to them. So it's relevant to your business, but it's also relevant to the audience, and it's appropriate for the channel that you're sharing it on. And also to talk a bit more about social media versus email. The current stat for how many people see any one post of yours, an organic post that's not paid for, on Facebook is about 2% of your overall Facebook fans, your page fans. Compare that with email marketing, and over 90% of people are going to see those. They don't slip down in their inbox too fast, and they don't end up in a spam folder or get rejected because of high security settings. So deliverability is key, but what we're going to talk about is integrating your various channels to get the most out of the content that you create. So speaking of creation, very quickly, our agenda is we're going to talk about how to create content, how to curate content or collect it, how to extend that content, like I was just saying, by integrating our various channels, and then some next steps very quickly to get you going. So one of the biggest questions that so many people have about content marketing and content creation is, what do I write about? You know, I recognize that this is what we need to be doing these days, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to write about. So this word cloud, the words in blue here, illustrates some ideas for various types of businesses, B2C, B2B, nonprofit, what have you, for different ideas that you can use to generate content. You want to write about what you know that your audience doesn't, and you want to tell your story, but you don't want to just ramble on about yourself. You want to tell it in a way that's relatable so other people get why you're doing what you're doing, or they get the product or service that you're offering. So let's take a closer look at just a few of these examples. One is offerings. So things that you could write about in social media, in an email campaign, might be a new product that you're offering, or free service with purchase. So for a limited time, get this when you purchase this. And it could be an upcoming event. If you're a business or organization who regularly does events, that's your offering, is the upcoming event. So clear call to action to the registration page and for more information. Maybe you're asking for people to get involved and volunteer or donate, whatever the case is. Those are all examples of offerings. Another example is updates. So, or another idea, I should say, is updates. So updates might include, news about a new location, if you've moved or expanded, a new staff member that you've brought on board, which we see a lot with professional associations. They might mention that, or car dealerships or what have you. Maybe the update is in the form of a newsletter. So membership-driven organizations tend to send out a newsletter because they have quite a few updates on a monthly basis. I see that with chambers of commerce, with golf courses, as two examples of businesses that send out regular monthly newsletters that include quite a bit of information. Also, a press release. If you're writing a press release for the media, feel free to also share that with your audience via email and social media, so you can maximize the amount of reach that you're getting with that press release. Another idea is education, and this is something that businesses like myself with a lot of intellectual property, this is something that I like to do with my business. How-to lists, top 10 lists. These are very hot ways to educate people very quickly and easily. This is information that you have that they don't. It's information that they might be privy to if they were to look it up on the internet, but not everybody has or takes the time to do so. So you can be that portal of information for them. Also relevant, you could talk about relevant current events going on in your industry that might impact your customers. So you're giving them the heads up on changes in the industry coming down the pipe. And finally, entertainment as an idea. Entertainment, I think we can all agree, is highly engaging. So, get your hands on or create a meme, which is, you see them on social media all the time, a picture that has a quote on it or a funny saying on it or what have you. A funny or relevant, funny video, but make sure that it's relevant as well. Of course, YouTube is breeding ground for those kinds of things, so not difficult to find something that's both funny and relevant. And also inspirational quotes. Now, you don't want to make this every piece of content that you post up there, as I think some people tend to do. But, if it's relevant, again, and to both you or your business and your audience, then it's a great piece of content to share now and again. So how much is enough? I think people get overwhelmed about how much content to create because I'm fairly certain that the bulk of small business people are not in the business of writing, and they're not in the business of marketing themselves. So writing sounds like a daunting task, and you picture yourself having to create copious amounts of content. Well, the truth is less is more, and that is not a new adage by any stretch of the imagination. But really what we're talking about is up to 20 lines of text, not even 20 lines of text. The less, the better. 3 pictures or less as well. You want to keep it very focused. And also when it comes to your call to action, the fewer the links, the more engagement you're going to get. Statistically speaking, there are reports, so many different reports that demonstrate that the more links you include, the less engagement you're getting, because it's almost like paralysis by analysis. So, if you can stick to one call to action, one link in your email or your social media post, then you're going to have a much better chance of getting a good level of engagement with your content rather than offering up too many options. And remember, when you're creating content, especially where email is concerned, more than half of emails are read on mobile devices, and mobile content is consumed much differently than desktop content. People are looking for quick reads, and they want the information that they want, and then they're on their way. So keep that in mind when you're putting together your content. And like I was saying before, it's a great idea to turn questions into content. And here are some examples of questions that you might be asked depending on the nature of your business. How do I ensure my pipes won't burst this winter? Do I deduct mileage? What's a simple way to? How do I get more people to? If you're hearing questions, similar questions or particular questions on a recurring basis, then think about how you can create a small piece of content to send out to all of your mailing list or to post on Facebook for all of your fans, to really to deliver value to them, to answer questions that you know they have, and to keep yourself top of mind, so that when they are looking for your product or service, that they think of you. So examples of how you can turn that into content for email, for example. The how do I ensure my pipes won't burst this winter? 5 ways to protect your pipes from freezing, and the lists of top 10 or 5 ways to, and the how-to or the DIY type subject lines get a lot of engagement right now. So a great idea for content. Answers to your top 3 mileage deduction questions. Red or white? 5 simple wine pairing tips. So you see how they take these questions and turn them into content. So, as we're working through this or after the webinar, take some time and write down a few questions that your clients give you or that your clients have that are relevant to your business, and think about how you can turn those into content. And images are content too, so don't overlook images. And in fact, an image in itself can be content, but as a supplementary piece of content, images and video can boost your engagement on social media by up to 200%. So, when you're creating content, if it's text content, try to find an image that's relevant to what you're sharing and include that image in your post, because this is the whole reason why Instagram and Pinterest are the fastest growing social networks right now. Yes, Facebook is the most popular social network worldwide, but Instagram and Pinterest are the fastest growing because people love visual content like images and videos. So keep that in mind when you're creating your content, to find relevant images and include it. You're going to see more likes, shares, comments, etc. and anyone can produce it. We all have pretty decent cameras included on our phones that are always on our hip or in our hand. So, it's never too terribly difficult to create our own visual content. And if we're talking about email marketing and visual content, let's look at the difference between a regular email and what that same email might look like in an email marketing platform. You're getting that visual content there. You're getting your branding, you're getting beautiful pictures, and it leads people through. They're not getting overwhelmed with text and they stop reading halfway through. The beautiful visual lead people through your email straight to the button that you see at the bottom on the right there, the call to action, which is the action that you want them to take. So, there are many benefits to using an email marketing system over regular email. One, you're compliant with spam legislation, whether it's in the U.S., CAN spam, or in Canada, it's CASL, anti-spam legislation. But also the branding, the consistency being recognized in the inbox, and on the other end, the measurability, so you can actually measure who's opening your emails, when they're opening them, who's clicking on your call to action, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we can all agree that just looking at these two pieces of content that are trying to achieve the same end result, that I think the image on the right, the email on the right, is going to be a lot more successful and have a lot more engagement. Like I said, looks great. It's compliant with anti-spam legislation, and also you can integrate it with social media to really extend the reach of your email. So when you send an email out, you can schedule it through Constant Contact to post automatically to Facebook, to LinkedIn, and to Twitter, so you don't have to do that, which can help you grow your list and, of course, reach more people so they can learn about what you do. And communicate through images. So when you're using images, there's a few things that you can do. When you're using images in email, you can make them clickable. You also want to keep the key action above the scroll line. So you want to make sure that they see your call to action, what you want them to do, before they have to scroll down. You want them to see it when they open your email right away. And use your design wisely, as I indicated before, and limit the choices so that your email or your social media is limited to one call to action, which is going to garner you more engagement and more click-throughs. Working with photos, there's a few things to keep in mind when you're working with photos, and I think they're fairly obvious, but we'll cover them here. Choose the right size for whatever platform you're posting or you're using. Avoid copyright issues. Use your own photos or stock images that you've subscribed for or paid for. Make sure that you have the rights to use the images that you're using. And if you are interested in using generic photos for your website, for your emails, for your social media, you can get some fairly good offers of kind of bulk downloadable stock photos from various stock photography websites, and a couple examples here. Big Stock, Stock Vault, free images. There's Shutterfly. There's so many photo sites out there. There's no excuse not to be using images that you have the rights to use. And also make it engaging with videos. So I mentioned before that including photos or video, any visual content, can garner up to 200% more engagement. So if you're using a video, mention your video in your email subject line because consumers are 50% more likely to engage with content that includes a video. So if they see that there's a video in there, they're more likely to open your email. And of course, always use videos, or I shouldn't say always, but never forget about videos and including the odd video here and there, especially if you create your own in your social media posts. And keep videos under 90 seconds because you're going to experience some drop-off if they're longer than that. but use the video for product demos, testimonials, promotions, etc. If you're at a live event, use Facebook Live or Periscope or what have you to broadcast that you're at an event. There's a lot of different ways that you can create and use video as content. So let's talk a little bit about curation. Content curation is sharing content from other people. So when you hear the word curation, at least for me, I always think of an art gallery because there's an art curator there who collects art. They use their expertise to find the art that their gallery members are going to be interested in. So I say the same thing to you. Use your expertise to find the content that you know your audience will find interesting and helpful. So, and there's different ways that you can curate. So, where do you find this? Check the news. Online and offline newspapers are full of information that's shareable, whether it's something specific to the community that you live in and you're a community-minded person and business. Lots of great stories in there. If you're in the sports or fitness industry, you can check out that area and share something. Read blogs. If you're a blog reader, you should secure an RSS reader so that you only have to go to one place to read all of your blogs. It's kind of like making your own online newspaper. A platform that I recommend is called Feedly, Feedly, and you sign up for that account. You go there on a daily basis. You choose the blogs that you want to read. It will curate those blog posts for you on a daily basis. So every day when you log in, you'll see the latest and greatest from the various blogs that you follow. So great tool. Highly recommend. Of course, follow social media. Follow other industry professionals on social media and see what they're saying. And, have conversations with them online, but also, share some of that content that you find with your fans and your readers as well. Create Google Alerts. If you Google the term Google Alerts, you can go to a page where you can quickly enter your email address and the topic that you're interested in, and Google will send you alerts every time that term is mentioned. They'll send you a digest that includes new posts online with that term in it. So another great way to have news and information that's relevant to you and your audience delivered to you. And subscribe to other people's email lists as well. So those are, that's going to come into your inbox as well. So, as much as you can, get the news coming to you. Get the information, the content that you want to curate. Find ways to get it to come to you. It's not difficult. The tools are out there, and that saves you having to search every time you're looking for something new to talk about, a new content topic for social media and or email. And don't forget to give credit to the original author or source. So, I use Buffer, and it's a sharing tool, and I use it to share and schedule my posts across LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And when I'm doing so, when I'm sharing other people's content, I always at the end will say via, and use their Twitter handle, or thanks so-and-so for this information kind of thing. It goes a long way to not just covering your butt and making sure that people understand that you're not passing this content off as your own, but also creating great, goodwill in your industry with other people in your industry who are thought leaders. So great best practice. So when you're sharing content created by others, depending on the nature of your business, you might have employees who are creating content that can be shared. So you can easily retweet or share a post or what have you with that information. Maybe it's members or volunteers at an event, and they're posting to Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook about the event during the day. Make sure that there's somebody who is curating this content and reposting this content from your network, from your account. partners and supporters, customers and clients. And also, if you have a blog, leverage the concept of guest blogging because it keeps you, it engages you with other people in the community who might be like-minded or have a story to share that's relevant to your audience. And so it's a great engagement tool, but it also alleviates the pressure from you having to create new blog content on a super regular basis. So a few tips on how you can extend your reach. You want to share information across various platforms, and I've mentioned that. So, you know, if you're sharing to email, you also want to share via social media, and you want to leverage tools like an RSS reader, like a blog, like using Hootsuite and Buffer to share content across multiple platforms and repurpose content. So if you've, for example, if you've created an email that says 4 tips on selling more tickets for your next event, and you have, you know, different steps, you can actually take those steps and break them down so that each individual step in that email, in that original piece of content, becomes a separate post for social media. So you see on the left, you've got email, 4 tips on selling more tickets. And number 1 is send your invitations in advance. So you would create a post, a quick post out of that to post to social media entitled when to send your event invitations, and so on and so forth. As you're going along, you can take each step and create a separate blog post to really extend the life of and the value of and the impact of that content. So you see here that there's a common picture in place that they've used for various posts. This is the Grafton Inn as an example. They've used the picture originally in their email, then they've shared it on Facebook, but they've also shared it on Instagram. And keep in mind that your audiences are different. You're going to have a little bit of overlap across your various networks, the channels that you're using, but your audiences are going to be somewhat different as well. And so the information and the way that you share information, your call to action, the pictures, the types of content you share are all going to be specific to the platforms that you're sharing it on. And choose your channels wisely. So there's such a compulsion to try to be everywhere all the time. And it's not only is it not really possible, it's not effective. It's not an effective use of your time. So choose the networks where you know that your audience is going to be. Start with email. Think about how your customers use email. Think about how you communicate. And just as a little aside, you know, when we're talking about email and the effectiveness of email, if there is any doubt, I mean, you look at Twitter. If you're a Twitter user, when somebody starts following you or if somebody mentions you on Twitter, how does Twitter let you know? They email you because they know as much as anybody else does that email is the most reliable channel to use for one-to-one communications. So chances are best that you're going to get the message that somebody mentioned you on Twitter if they email you to let you know. So keep that in mind, but also, you know, think about the other available platforms out there. And of course, the big one that's a big couple of them that are missing from this graphic is YouTube and Instagram. But it pays to know your audience. You want to know where your audience is, and then you want to be there because just like the type of content that you share, you know, you want to be relevant with your customers. You want to be where they are and share information that they want. And if you're doing email, specifically through Constant Contact, but I know that other email platforms include some of this functionality as well, make sure to include the social share bar at the top because that can increase your click-through rates by up to 158%. So you see the share bar there. people can click on that and share your email with their networks. And also be sure to include social media buttons. Generally speaking, in email newsletter campaigns, you'll see those at the bottom, but that allows people to engage with you on your networks, the various networks that you're on. And make sure to ask people to like, share, retweet, and pin. Chances are really good that they're more than happy to do it, but they read your email so quickly and then they move on with their day. But if you take a moment in your closing to ask people to click on the share bar at the top of your email, you'd be surprised at the number of people that might be willing to do that for you. And finally, use the social share tool. Now, this is specific to Constant Contact. Again, other platforms may have a similar function, but using the social share tool allows you to automatically post your newsletter to share it across other social platforms, including LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can create multiple posts, so you could post once right after your email sent, another time, if you have an upcoming event, for example, another time maybe a week out from the event, and another time right the day before the event saying that registration is closing, for example. So fantastic tool to use. It really extends your reach with your newsletters, exposing new viewers, new readers to your emails, and helping you potentially grow your list as well, because new viewers will read your newsletter and subscribe. So great tool to use to really extend your reach. And finally, just a few next steps for you to get you started, to get you kick-started, to help you be more efficient and effective with your content marketing. Keep in mind always that you're writing for your audience, not for yourself. If you want to write for yourself, get yourself a journal. It's not the same thing. Use links and keep it relevant, short, and focused. So, less is more. Remember that. Keep in mind who your audience is, what they're interested in. Use questions, frequently asked questions to generate content. Be aware of where your audience is online so that you can meet them where they are. And be sure to use analytics if you're, regardless of where you're posting, there's analytics available. So in Constant Contact dashboard, after you send an email, you can go in and take a look at who's opened your emails, how many have opened, date, time of day they've opened. Those are important too. Any unsubscribes you might want to look at as well, bounces, clicks, et cetera, But you can also use the reporting on social media platforms. For example, on Facebook, it's Facebook Insights from the top of your Facebook page. You want to measure what's working and what's not. You want to see what's garnering the most engagement in order to do more of that and maybe do less of what's not working or tweak what's not working. So great tip, be sure to measure what you're doing. So 3 very easy steps for content. Begin with the last customer question that you got. What are the last questions that a customer asked you? From there, find a relevant picture, write a paragraph, answers that question, and create a simple, focused call to action, whether it's visit my website for more information, visit my blog, call me, come into the store, whatever the case is, one clear call to action for them. So I will be taking questions now for those of you who have some questions. There is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, an offer available from Constant Contact, which you'll see on your screen now. So for those of you using Constant Contact, you can attest, I'm sure, to the effectiveness of it. I've used it for about 12 years now for my own small business, and I actually started out using it corporately before that when I had a job. So, to help people get started with email marketing, if you're interested, Constant Contact offers a complimentary custom designed email template, which allows you to just plug in your content and send it to your mailing list. You can get help with the contact list upload and configuration, and you'll also get a getting started guide, to video tutorials, and an invitation to a live getting started or a how-to webinar. Also, right now, you can save 30% off for the first 3 months. So the price is $15 US for Canadian, $20 US in the States per month. There's a number of discounts available for chamber members, for nonprofits, etc. So if you have any questions about that, contact me at the email you see there, Laurie@emotivatemarketing.com. I'm happy to answer your questions. And if you have any additional questions about anything that we've discussed today, please feel free to ask as well. Engage with me on social media. I'm happy to chat with you and answer any questions that you might have. Speaking of questions, if you have any questions right now, please, I am going to be staying on the line. It's only 1:40 now, so we're ahead of schedule, but if you have any questions about content creation or curation tips and tools that you can use, I'm happy to answer those questions right now. I have committed to stay on the line until 2:15. If you're done, though, please feel free to jump off at any time. I respect your time. And please know that I will be sending you this slide deck as well as the recording of this seminar, and I do thank you for joining me today. So any questions, I'll just keep an eye on the question area and feel free to ask away. Hi, everybody. I have a question here from Lisa. Thanks for your question, Lisa. So lots of our group emails include click here after a few descriptive words strategically placed at the end of a sentence. And I indicated make one click for the click here to view the call to action. Is that preferred and why? I get what you're saying, and I actually like that strategy. And if you're sending out an email that's more of a newsletter style email that is a digest with several different topics, then your strategy makes sense. And if you're only kind of giving a little teaser, a little snippet of information before each call to action, then that makes sense because you're truly going to see who's interested in each piece of information because you'll be garnering those clicks. They have to click through to get more information. So I think that makes sense for you, assuming that is what you're sending out is a newsletter that has a number of news items in it. Am I assuming right, Lisa? Oh, sorry. Yes, I don't have the mic turned on just because I tend to get a lot of feedback. So, just if you can type the answer. Okay. Yes. Okay. So that answers your question. Thanks so much for your question, Lisa. Yes, I think that again, there's no one prescription for every business out there. Really depends on who your audience is, what the nature of your business is, what the nature of your content is, and if you have a lot of information to share on a regular basis. I had mentioned, the membership-based organizations tend to fall into that category, but if you've got a number of different snippets to share, sometimes depending on how much that is, I recommend breaking it up into smaller emails, but at the same time, as we all know, you can reach that saturation point where you start to annoy people rather than them being grateful for the information. So, you do want to put a bunch of information in one email campaign, and that's the right way to do it. That's perfect. Risk of a recipient not reading content if the call to action and click is positioned strategically. Yes, right. So, of course, design for mobile is critical. Um, yes, you have to be careful about what your call to action is and determine where you place your call to action accordingly. Because yes, if you picture reading information on a mobile device, of course, it's going to compress things quite a bit, and there's going to be a lot more vertical scrolling to read all of your information, and you want to make sure that they get the bulk of your information before they click through. Now that said, depending on what your call to action is, if if they don't need to read the information and they can just click through um, either to get more information or to take the action that you want them to take, then maybe it makes sense to have the call to action at the top. But I do understand what you're saying, and yes, mobile, we really have to be very cognizant of designing for mobile because as of 2015, mobile consumption of content surpassed that of desktop consumption. So, um, so it's important that we realize that more and more people are consuming websites and social media and emails on a mobile device rather than a desktop device. Hi, Lisa. I've enabled your microphone. There's a few people left on the call, but everybody seems to be a little quiet. Do you have additional questions? Thanks for joining us today, Lisa. The quiet group. Usually I have more questions than I can deal with in the allotted time. So thanks for your questions and thanks for your participation today. I will be following up with the resources as well as a bonus download, 10 ways to, 10 ways to boost productivity with the IFT app. So watch for that coming through as well.